You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below, and be sure to smash that like button. So we all know that there's an opening at Northwestern up in Evanston, Illinois, because Pat Fitzgerald was fired amid hazing controversy. Well, on Wednesday, there was a report that former LSU coach Ed Orgeron was interested in the job. And we, like many others, just all made the same jokes because Ed Orgeron and Northwestern in Illinois, Northwestern in the Big Ten, not Northwestern State, which Ed Orgeron is an alum, that would actually make a ton of sense. But anyway, Ed Orgeron and Northwestern of the Big Ten would mix like oil and water. That's a for very many obvious reasons not wouldn't appear to be a great match. Well, hat tip to Sheldon Mickles of The Advocate. I don't know why Sheldon was in Natchitoches, but he was there in Natchitoches, Louisiana, while Ed Orgeron was there, and they caught up. And Ed Orgeron laughed about the Northwestern job, and he said, quote, "Man, I don't know where they get this stuff," laughing off the report. So he confirmed to Sheldon that he's not interested in the Northwestern job. He also told that to Bruce Feldman of The Athletic. But I think maybe the more interesting part of this is that Ed Orgeron told Sheldon Mickles he's retired from coaching. When asked about possibly coaching again, Ed Orgeron said that he's finished with coaching. He's happy with his life of leisure after working 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. all those years. Quote, "I'm done with that." End quote. So Ed Orgeron says he is retired from coaching. Okay, so a few things. First of all, good for Ed Orgeron from this point of view. He did go through the long grind that coaches go through. Okay, like I understand a lot of you are going to listen to me talk about Ed Orgeron with a little bit of a crooked eye, and I understand. It's very obvious. Ed and I didn't have the best relationship when he was the coach here, okay? Let's just state the very obvious. I have nothing personal against Ed Orgeron whatsoever. It was always a matter of opinion on if it was a good fit to be LSU's head football coach, okay? But Ed Orgeron went through the grind that coaches go through. He started as a grad assistant at Northwestern State. Then in 1984, 30 years ago, then was a grad assistant at McNeese. Went up to Arkansas as an assistant strength coordinator for a couple of years. We know then he went down to Miami in the late 80s, early 90s. Found his way out of football after that with some controversy that's been discussed. Got back into coaching at Nichols for 1 year in 1994. Then went up to Syracuse where he was a defensive line coach and then made his way out west to Southern Cal. He was there from 98 to 2004. Part of, obviously, the transition to Pete Carroll and the rise of those great USC programs in the early 2000s. Then he got his opportunity to be a head coach at Ole Miss. We know how that went. He was 10-25. It was a disaster. He went to the New Orleans Saints for a year, then went with Lane Kiffin to Tennessee for a year, then was with Lane Kiffin at Southern Cal again. He became the interim at USC in 2013, was out of coaching for a year in 2014 when he did radio here with Jordy and Derek every Tuesday morning. And then Les Miles hired him to be the defensive line coach, and we know what happened. Interim, then head coach, then you fired out midway through the 2021 season. So my point is, Ed Orgeron followed the path that a lot of these coaches follow that we talk about a lot here. And to have made it through 30 years as a coach, starting from a GA at Northwestern State and ultimately being the head coach of the greatest college football team ever, and everything that went in between was a hell of a grind and a hell of a climb, and that deserves a tremendous amount of respect. Ed Orgeron was a phenomenal defensive line coach, one of the best recruiters any of us have ever seen. So, yeah, man, he did a lot in his coaching career, and it ended horribly. Now, I will say now what I said when he got fired. the beginning with Ed Orgeron at LSU was very bumpy with the Matt Canada stuff that happened, turning over coaching staff. The end was a disastrous ball of flames, how it all crashed down. Hiring Bo Pelini without interviewing him. After replacing both coordinators in 2021, he hired two guys that were completely unqualified to do so. We all know the stuff with Ed. And then there was the off-the-field stuff and the scandals that surrounded the program, and then the things that were just embarrassing. We all know what they are, okay? I don't need to rehash every one of them. We all remember everything that happened. But I'll tell you again today what I said then, which was I would take all of the bad, all of it, wanting to fight Matt Canada, trying to fire Canada 2 games into the season, acknowledging he didn't interview assistant coaches, blowing money on assistants that were not qualified, everything, all the stuff. The radio show with the guy and all, we've got a special place where you dump your body, all that sort of stuff that we all know it, okay? The pictures in the bed with the woman. I would take all of the embarrassment for 2019. And ultimately, 2019 is what most people are going to remember when they start the conversation about Ed Orgeron's coaching career. He was the head coach of the greatest college football team ever. Now, there was also Ole Miss, which was no good. He had some problems as a younger man, which a lot of hothead young coaches do, and that, it happens. Not excusing any illegal behavior, but good for him that he rebounded from it, got his life in order. All of the things that were bad will be mentioned, but you're going to start with 2019. And he also made a giant pile of money, not only coaching, but $16 million, $17 million to not coach when LSU fired him. So he's living a very comfortable life. He told Sheldon Mickles he runs about 4 miles a day. He works out every day. He's happy being retired. He's being a dad to his 3 sons who are all coaching in some way right now. We learned recently that Ed Orgeron is engaged again after his split with his wife, Kelly. He enjoys working out. Good for him, man. He says he's splitting time between Baton Rouge and Miami. His home in Baton Rouge, and he's got a spot in Miami, so he's back and forth. Good for him. He's going to be 62 later this month, and he went through a 30-year grind to get to this point. And if he wants to go just chill for the rest of his life, good on him. Now, if he wanted to coach again and be a defensive line coach or recruiting coordinator or a head coach at a small school, he may have that opportunity if he wanted it. But at 62, he might be good just hitting the eject button and being done. And I'll say for Ed what I've said for all these coaches. It's the same premise, whether it's Gene Chizik or Mac Brown or Bob Stoops or Turner Gill, Urban Meyer. A lot of coaches have done exactly what Ed Orgeron did. They spent 30 years working from 5 a.m. to 11 p.m., 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year, 365 days. You've heard it. And they get to a point where they're in their 50s or 60s. They made a ton of money. They're completely burnt out, and they retire. They say, I've spent so much of my life and dedicated to football, and now I'm going to dedicate the rest of my family. But the competitive juices in a lot of these guys, the thing that makes them elite at what they do, or it's the switch you can never turn off, which is why Mac Brown is coaching North Carolina again, which is why Gene Chizik is his defensive coordinator, which is why Bob Stoops is coaching in the XFL, which is why Urban Meyer left and then came back into the NFL and was back in TV. He'll probably find his way back to coaching again. They can't turn it off. These guys just can't turn that switch off. It's the thing that makes them them. It's the thing that makes them elite at the thing they do. So maybe Ed Orgeron is done. And if he is, hat tip for an amazing career that wasn't great as a head coach, but had far more good in it than bad over his 30-some-odd years. But Ed Orgeron told Sheldon Mickles that he is retired. And if, in fact, that is it for Ed, say it again, man. Thanks for 2019. 2019 is something by which all of us would excuse any other misgiving because it was that spectacular. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.